It is Thursday, the 21st of November in the year of the Lord 2024. You're watching KBN TV, the finest television. Thank you very much for joining us. We are live now on 279 on DSTV, on 27 Go TV, and 102 Top Star nationwide. And of course, the good news is you can also join us live on Facebook as well as YouTube KBN TV channels. Then you can join the conversation. As usual, it's Thursday, and we are delighted to bring you some of the finest discussing points that you may wish to get clarity on, as far as what is happening currently in the nation. And our topic for discussion is the UPND governance and development agenda in the eyes of the PF. In that context, then, I am delighted to be joined on set by the chairperson for information and publicity in the Patriotic Front, that is Ambassador Emmanuel MWAMBA. Let me now welcome you, Ambassador, to State of the Nation.
Thank you very much. I haven't been here for a long time, but glad to be here and glad to be with your audience.
Wonderful. Now, let's get started already, because this past week has been quite eventful. Some of the things that we've seen happening during the week under review, the Pedagogical Member of Parliament, JJ Banda, coming back in the news, and also we have had the Catholic bishops issuing out the Pastoral Letter. Other than that, we have had today and the day after, or the day before rather, the bus operators, staging a protest, literally, stopping the movement across the country in protest against the suspension of the license for Jordan bus services. And the top comedian from America, Steve Harvey, is in the country. He was meeting the head of state and the other officials. These are many other things that we're going to be discussing on State of the Nation tonight. But of more importance is the fact that we'll be looking into the rear view mirror as far as government is concerned and development, and you mirror that in the eyes of the Patriotic Front, as you could be as you could see, based on the guest that I have in studio. Let's start with Kawambwa by-elections. The nominations were happening today. You seemed to have had a bit of a challenge, but you succeeded.
Yes, indeed. You are aware that the Patriotic Front joined a political alliance called Tonse Alliance. In there are about 7 political parties. And for the decision to contest the 3 by-elections, one in Kawambwa, one in a ward election in Chilawombwe, and another one in Shangombo, it was decided that member alliances should who use their political parties to participate. You are aware that the Electoral Commission of Zambia barred the Patriotic Front from participating in by-elections. I think since November last year, the Patriotic Front has not participated in these by-elections. So Mwangala Zalumis at the Electoral Commission of Zambia decided to issue some strange regulation where she stated that in every by-election, the certificate, nomination certificate, must be filed by the president of the political party and the secretary general, and that those should be the ones that are recognized at the registrar of societies. So that particular regulation was directed at the Patriotic Front, because remember there was a dispute where Mal Sampad emerged as party president after that sham conference, and Morgan Ingona became secretary general. So the regulation that Mwangala Zalomis crafted was to disenfranchise the Patriotic Front, one led by Edgar Lungu. So we've had challenges to participate. We participated and our certificates were rejected. When you are dealing with a dictatorship like that of President Hakainde Hichilema, you have to adapt. So we joined first the United Kwacha Alliance, and also joined the other alliance called Tonse Alliance. the Patriotic Front Central Committee made a decision that since the Patriotic Front is the largest opposition party in Zambia, with members across the country, councillors, council chairperson, mayors, and about over 50 members of parliament, that it was imperative that the Patriotic Front use this leverage to unite the opposition. Hence our membership in United Culture Alliance and our membership in Tonse, and we still appeal to other opposition parties to see how we can come together. So it is under that environment that we then participated in the Kawambwa election. Yes, we had problems because all of a sudden ECZ claimed that the documents they had as ECZ and the people that had signed the certificates were not present on the office bearers that they had from the Registrar of Societies. I think there was a persuasion that was given to the Electoral Commission of Zambia. Mr. Chanda, who is president of New Congress Party, demonstrated just this year he has participated in Impika under his signature, in Shwangandu, in Mwansabombwe, and recently in Dilika ward in Chipata. So he didn't understand what ECZ was talking about if they had accepted his hand as president of New Congress Party. After, I think, negotiations, it was agreed that our candidate could file and that was validly, he had validly filed his nominations.
Right. Now, looking at the events of Kawambwa, you have adopted a candidate under the New Congress Party. Much of what was being said was not the party, and yet that's what will be on the ballot. But we were hearing more of Tonse Alliance. Don't you see that you're going to find yourselves in a predicament where you have projected Tonse Alliance that is not on the ballot, and the New Congress Party, which is now your ticket, is very little known because New Congress has not participated in any major national elections, so to speak?
Well, those would be marketing, branding, and identity challenges, and that they have to be persuaded. We have a very good candidate who the people of Kawambwa know, and we hope that just his contribution to Kawambwa will help in identifying our candidate. We'll rally our party structures to identify the candidate, to identify the political party, to identify the symbol of the person we are featuring. We are glad that our members recognize the challenges that the party is going through, that we have a very, very difficult challenge with this government that is, determined to shut down the opposition, determined to disenfranchise the opposition, determined to ensure that they limit and restrict the activities of the opposition. And I think Zambians are beginning to waking up to understand that President Hakainde Hichilema may not be the president they had elected. They thought this is a man that will expand freedoms, that this is a man that will allow the opposition to freely operate. They had hoped that this is a man that will ensure that the democratic space is expanded. What has happened is totally the opposite.
Yesterday, the Minister of Home Affairs and Internal Security, Mr. Jack Mwimbu, held a press conference, very confident, exuding a lot of confidence that finally they had come to a place where they're almost concluding the extradition process for a fugitive member of parliament for Petaoke, JJ Banda. You are, I think, the only person I can recall that you disputed the position of government on this matter, and you called it all lies. Is there the truth that you know that the minister doesn't know and the nation doesn't know, that you were the only odd one out to contradict the position of government?
So for me, Honorable Jack Mwimbu, Minister of Home Affairs and Interior Affairs, is not a believable man. I saw it for myself when JJ was abducted and went missing for a period of 3-4 days. And then we received those phone calls in the night that was found, and JJ claimed that he was tortured and he needed medical treatment. He was transported from Kafue District Hospital to Medland Hospital. I was personally present with other members of parliament, and we saw the conduct of the police under the charge of Jack Mwimbu. And Jack Mwimbu, as you heard from the testimony of JJ's sister, was actually on the premises as Minister of Home Affairs at 0304 to ensure that JJ was removed from a place of his treatment and of his choice, the choice of the family, a Medland Hospital, to Maina Soko Hospital. This now was like a second abduction. My phones were confiscated that day, and other phones were confiscated for those that attempted to film the event, how they brutally removed his drips and how they brutally removed him from the ward and then took him into a waiting ambulance and whisked him away, you know. So, and then I saw the press conference in the morning. I couldn't believe what the minister was saying. It is there where I realized that Honorable Jack Mwimbu can speak with a straight face, look right into the camera and tell a lie. So when he held that press conference yesterday, Pastor Kenneth, you and I are journalists, so what I did immediately was to call a few of our colleagues in Harare. Most of them were very busy because there was a SADC Heads of State Summit going on. There's an emergency SADC State Heads of State Summit that is going on in Harare. But I reached a few of our journalists and who said, look, we are here with the Minister of Home Affairs, we are here with the Inspector General of Police right here, and what you are telling us doesn't appear to be true. Then I remembered how they had extricated Honorable Chimbakambwili from Zimbabwe, and I knew that Honorable Jack Mwimbu was not telling the truth. So in my conversation yesterday, I demanded that the minister must first show us that he has Interpol orders, that JJ has been placed on red alert, that he should demonstrate to us that there is between Zambia and Zimbabwe an extradition treaty. Otherwise, what he was saying was not true, or he was not being truthful to how JJ could have been detained or so-called arrested, and how then JJ was no longer in police custody, because as at yesterday, the journalists in Harare were saying, no, he's not in police custody. And that's why I put out that information on my page and challenged the minister to tell the truth. And I challenged the minister to show that JJ was arrested.
In the aftermath of this, there are now memes. Everyone is making fun of the minister and the government that captured but still at large, captured only to be released. That makes you feel perhaps comforted?
Yeah, the country is just joining what I witnessed on the first abduction of JJ. And now the minister totally told lies. Because JJ, I personally saw him with other members of parliament. There were about 4 or 5 of us. He was in great pain. He was complaining that day of pain under his sores, under his sides. And the minister said, no, JJ is okay. He's okay, he's fine, and he's not been abducted, there's no abduction. JJ proceeded to write an affidavit sworn by him, filed in the Lusaka High Court, where he named 2 senior officials at State House as being part of those that had abducted him. That Minister of Home Affairs has done nothing. His police, Inspector General of Police, has done nothing about those allegations. In fact, they proceeded to charge JJ with new criminal offenses, some that were settled by the courts of law. They now gave him these charges. First, instead of giving him the medical treatment he needed, instead of allowing his complaint that was brutally abducted, tortured, and that 2 key senior officials of this country based at State House were involved. Instead of pursuing those allegations, they chose to criminalize JJ, locked him up, and we don't know under what circumstances they took him to Chipata. They locked up him in prison, and when he finally went missing, he was under the custody of the government.
It would appear that the government and the Minister of Internal Security, Jack Mwimbu, would wish this thing to just go away. The abduction, like it never happened. In his press conference yesterday, he never referenced that JJ would have been a victim of abduction. He's interested in bringing him back because he escaped, lawful custody. Do you really think that this issue of abduction will ever see the light of day and justice will be served?
This is why we demand for justice. Before you pursue matters that occurred in 2015, 2016 in Vubwi by-election, why don't you pursue JJ's fear for his life, JJ's claims that he was abducted by senior members of State House? Why don't you pursue those claims? How come you seem to exert attention to offenses that occurred in 2015 and pay a blind eye to the cases that recently happened and his complaint? I am not surprised. It's called a cover-up. A cover-up is even a bigger crime than the actual crime. So here they are covering up for what happened to the abduction. They don't want Zambians to know what happened, how JJ was abducted. And if JJ is out there, I think they are totally petrified because he may have the truth. He may communicate that truth to the people of Zambia. I think that's why there is this desperate attempt. I personally cannot believe, having been a diplomat, that you have a SADC heads of state meeting in Harare, that the president, our head of state, is expected to be among those heads of state, but you've exerted your diplomatic pressure on a police station, on a small matter regarding one of your 156 MPs. Instead of the actual issue that is happening, there is a SADC heads of state meeting where your officials are preparing and the presidents have arrived. But the entire Zambia diplomatic service is pursuing JJ. Isn't that ridiculous? But it shows you that this is a second crime of cover-up. Because cover-up is usually even a bigger crime than the actual crime.
Let's talk about the interplay in the bigger scheme of diplomacy. You have the heads of state happening in Zimbabwe, and that's exactly where you need the extradition, to be executed. But you have somewhat shunned that at that level. I know maybe the Minister of Foreign Affairs and a few juniors could be there. But as the president of the nation, you haven't gone there, but you want diplomatic cooperation to happen. And as you answer that, I want you to also loop in the issue of the statement from the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Grafo Msamba. Was that just to self-face? Because he says between Zambia Interpol and Harare Interpol, there is a lot of progress that is being made to make sure that JJ is brought to book.
Yeah, it's clearly a blunder. This is Zambia and Zimbabwe. Between them, there are tensions. There is poor relations. President Hakainde Hichilema missed the meeting of Honorable President, His Excellency President Mnangagwa, who was then being inaugurated. He missed that meeting, if you remember. Then there is currently an extraordinary heads of state summit, and our president chose to be with an American comedian. Look at the optics here, terrible. Your colleagues are in Harare trying to solve the crisis in Eastern Congo, in northern Mozambique, in the issues that has happened after the post-elections in Mozambique. They want to look at the upcoming elections in Namibia and the tensions. We've just had successful elections in Botswana. Clearly, there have been major security issues that have risen in the region. You choose to be with an American comedian. So the optics are terribly bad. But your entire diplomatic machinery is exerted on Harare trying to extradite JJ Banda. We look amateurs. We look very bad. You ought to demonstrate good neighborliness. You ought to demonstrate good cooperation. And to Zimbabwe, the way Honorable Kambwili was extradited from Zimbabwe, without a proper lawful process, although they cooperated, it didn't mean that they could do it for the second time. So I think this government ought to work on the fundamental issues. And number one, good neighborliness. We need to restore our relationship in SADC. We've always been leaders on the African scene. We've always been leaders on the international scene. And we are missing a big mark by being absent from SADC meetings.
Let's talk about the timing. The timing from the ruling of the Speaker of the National Assembly, Nelly Muti, who says, I am giving JJ Banda 7 days to show himself, failure to which I'm going to declare the seat vacant. First of all, let's talk about her legal backing or the lack of it to be the one to declare the seat vacant based on that ruling. And then secondly, the timing from her ruling to the sudden discovery of where JJ Banda has been all along. We didn't know he was just next door until there was this ruling, and then we hear, oh, we knew where he was about 2 weeks ago and we started the extradition process. Don't you find this a little bit too much of a coincidence?
It's not a coincidence. The Inspector General of Police has issued a statement and he traces his feet back to 6th November. So this government has known that JJ is in Harare in 6th November. So what is happening in Parliament is properly choreographed. The Inspector General of Police says he was alerted on 6th November that they wrote the first Interpol documents, on 12th November, and that on the 19th they had JJ either detained or arrested. So if they knew that JJ was in Zimbabwe on 6th November, subsequent actions are being done with the full knowledge of what's happening. So the minister cannot pretend, neither can the speaker pretend, that these events are not connected and are happening in isolation. Unfortunately, no. I wish to caution Madam Nelly Muti, the Speaker of the National Assembly, despite all the infractions she's done, despite limiting and restricting political debate, especially from the opposition in Parliament, despite her many rulings that oppress the opposition, this action she wants to do is not only unconstitutional, it's illegal. She doesn't have powers to declare a seat vacant. The only institution that sparks that process in this country is a constitutional court. It's the one that can spark such a declaration. Or the other circumstances where a member of parliament either resigns, a member of parliament dies, or a member of parliament, is convicted, if the appellate process is completed, where a member of parliament is under those circumstances, the seats can be nullified. For example, if the courts rule in an electoral petition that such seat was not properly elected. So Nelly Muti is treading on illegal grounds.
But this matter cannot be left unattended for as long as JJ Banda wishes to be away. There must be closure to it.
Yes,
what must be the process then?
The executive, no. If there's a matter of contention, the law doesn't provide for it like it is in this case. They are supposed to request the Attorney General to face the Constitutional Court and present this matter. The Speaker can only punish up to 30 days. The Speaker doesn't have powers to declare a seat vacant, even under any circumstances other than the ones provided or prescribed. Therefore, they should go to the Constitutional Court. Only the Constitutional Court can fill in the gaps. The so-called lacuna can only be filled in by the Constitutional Court. So we appeal to the executive to take the matter of an absent member of parliament for interpretation to the Constitutional Court, not to break the law in the manner they want to do it.
Let's take the discussion into your bedroom. Your party really is a shell of itself.
Yes.
You are torn in three factions, and people really don't know where they belong, where to go, who to follow, and all of that. But as that is not enough, what is happening to your party, you have now some of the senior members of your party who have been locked up and denied bail pending appeal. Do you have any plan on how we are going to address these somewhat, they are looking like injustices? What do you plan to do as a party to make sure that you bring, first of all, order to your party, and also you address these seemingly unjust, maneuvers?
First of all, our party is not a shell. I think this is what brings consternation to President Hakainde Hichilema, because whatever he has done to our party, he finds that our MPs are largely intact. He finds that our mayors, our council chairpersons are largely intact. He finds that our members are largely intact. He imposes this leader and no one follows such a leader. He has imposed a third leader and no one follows such a leader. That's what petrifies them. What's a glue that holds the Patriotic Front together? Hence the sustained attacks against the party. First of all, to blame it for everything that the country is going through, to pretend that this was a party, a criminal enterprise. They've heightened propaganda against the former president, Edgar Lungu, all in an attempt to destroy the Patriotic Front. All these have been in vain. They are using what is called lawfare. Now, lawfare is a use of the law in punishing your political opponents. For example, you arrest your political opponents on trumped-up charges. You relieve very old cases, as you have seen. They've brought cases from 2014, in the case of GBM, 2013 cases. Before he resigned, he resigned in 2013 as Minister of Defense. Those cases 10 years ago are the ones that GBM is facing. Honorable Davis Chama in Mongu, a case of 2016, is facing those charges. So they are using lawfare, the use of the law, to oppress the opposition. They can use, for example, tax authorities to invade your business, check that you are tax compliant, and ensures that they bankrupt you. They are using all these mechanisms. And there's a new issue where all our people, first of all, are suffering long detentions. Members of the opposition, not just the PF. Look at the case of our dear brother Thomas Ziambo, who was in police custody for 16 days going into 17 days. They are using those cases of long detention. Honorable Nakachinda was detained for 9 days, going to 10 days. I was detained, I've been arrested 3 times. The attempt, first of all, is to silence the opposition. That all of us must be quiet as this dictatorship reigns. That's what they are doing. That's what they want. Look at the case of recent cases. GBN, Nixon Chilangwa, Wanzia Kampiongo, Ronald Chitotela, Kalumba Chifumbe, Devi Kaniki, Chabu Chitotela, Kunda Chitotela, Francis Mchemwa, Bowman Lusambo, have all been convicted, and the courts have refused to give them bail pending appeal. This was an automatic issue, because your right to appeal is a constitutional right. Therefore, even your bail, although it's discretionary, because now you are a convicted person, is almost automatic because you are pleading your innocence. All these have been denied bail pending appeal. Clearly, there are executive instructions to ensure that don't give them bail, don't allow them, in some cases, even refuse the appeal. And this is what is happening. And it's extremely dangerous. You are breaking the Constitution. The Constitution has given you the right to innocence, right to appeal, right to complete the entire due process of the law, including appealing up to the Supreme Court. It's your constitutional right. But this government has, all of a sudden, all these people that I've mentioned have been denied bail pending appeal. Then we have cases like the case of Rizwan in Chipata, who's been detained, I think now is coming to almost a year, and he has not seen the light of court. Again, Rizwan was very was a very active member of the Patriotic Front in Eastern Province, and he's been locked up for that very reason, that he should be incarcerated, locked away, and not being given bail. This is to ensure that there is silence from the opposition. And then there is fear for those that have been arrested or those that are facing prosecution to watch their mouth and keep quiet. So there is a sense of fear that has engulfed our country.
If you are alleging that there is the hand of the executive in issuing instructions to the judiciary, don't you think that they can only do so much? They can only, I mean, unless the judiciary and all the officials in the justice system are gullibles. I mean, they're so gullible, they don't have a backbone. Don't you think that the executive, as you are alleging, surely you can't hold people at ransom forever and suppress the due process of the law? Do you think that this is sustainable?
Yeah, that is why the Zambia Conference of Catholic Bishops has singled out the Chief Justice, Dr. Mumba, and have appealed to him to ensure that that judiciary comes back to the Constitution, that judiciary should not lend itself to the executive, that judiciary should not be for hire for people from the executive who are waging political wars with their opponents. And at the middle of all this is law enforcement agencies and the judiciary. So I'm glad that the Zambia Conference of Catholic Bishops, and this is the second issue. Remember Osida, the controversial letter by Archbishop Telesfo Mpundu earlier this year, who called for sanctions, and among the people he put on the top was the Chief Justice.
Right.
Because the judiciary, the justice system, preserves national security, preserves peace in the country, resolves conflict. When the judiciary goes, the country goes.
Right. Let me, I mean, you have mentioned the issue of the pastoral letter that really did a lot of rounds on social media and then many stream media. It was a huge talking point. I understand many churches across the country in the Catholic, that particular Sunday following the publication, that was the message. That is what they read. Now, in the aftermath of that, we read in some sections of the media, a Minister of Infrastructure, Mr. Charles Milupi, who was quoted thinking that in his submission, he thought that the Zambia Conference of Catholic Bishops seemed to have a soft spot for the Patriotic Front. He says they seem to be glorifying your party always. How do you react to such kind of a sentiment?
First of all, the Pastoral Letter, you and I are keen readers. There's a book, Pastoral Letters in Zambia, and you will see the language of the church from the 60s. They've never wavered from their call to defend the poor, to ensure that justice reigned in this country, that peace and security were not compromised, and that activities such as corruption, activities such as tribalism were spoken against and reined in. So the Catholic Church has been very consistent. They are a thorn to every government that transgresses the law, that doesn't take care of the poor, that engages in corruption, that engages in abuse of human rights. They will find the church very, very difficult. And I personally I'm very, very disappointed with three key individuals from the UPND government. One of them is the Secretary General, Batuke Imenda, who has refused to date to apologize for his careless and dangerous remarks that the foremost leader of the Catholic Church in Zambia, Dr. Alik Banda, who he called names and called him Lucifer. And to date, he has not apologized. Neither has his president, President Hakainde Hichilema, has not apologized for these very careless, very dangerous, very divisive remarks and defamatory remarks against the church and against Archbishop Dr. Alik Banda. Just the other day, I was listening to Kalomo, Member of Parliament, was on Radio Phoenix, and he singled out Archbishop Alik Banda and called him a member of the Patriotic Front. I was so embarrassed that a member of parliament, member of the legislature, who professed to be a Catholic, could issue such careless remarks. And then we have this Charles Milupi, the Minister of Infrastructure, who's an alliance member of the UPND, who says that the statement is skewing towards the PF. If you look at the statement,
there it is.
Seek justice, rescue the oppressed, defend the orphans, plead for the widow. That's the theme of the pastoral letter. Where is PF there? When they spoke about the political situation in the country, where they cautioned that this government must suspend constitutional and penal code amendments they are doing, that they must suspend the law, the bill number 17 of 2024 on hate speech, because first of all, there's no consultation. Secondly, you are putting punitive measures up to 20 years just for hate speech. And you have not consulted anyone. And we heard President Hakainde Hichilema says, I'm going to stiffen the law. And then you yield to that quickly to enact such a bad law, such an oppressive, archaic law. No one wants tribal talk. No one wants hate speech. But you can't have such an overreaching, such oppressive law being enacted in our modern times as a democracy. On the issue of the constitution, we are remaining with 19 months before we go to our elections in 2026. How will you embark on the constitution amendments? How will you gather the consensus required? How will you ensure that you'll have a consensus document on your table? Again, we wish to warn Honorable Nelly Muti, who thinks that Parliament can on its own amend the Constitution, where she's proposing that they want to, what they're calling, what they're calling non-contentious issues. And she thinks that those non-contentious issues must be allowed to be amended by Parliament without reference to the people. Again, she's treading on dangerous ground. Parliament is a creature of the Constitution. It can't amend itself. It has to be the people. If you look at the issues they raised, the cost of living crisis that Zambia is facing, one of the worst in recent memories. Look at the load shedding, again, one of the worst in recent memory. Look at the bread basket, food and nutritional basket. How much is it? 10,300. Who can afford it? What's the price? What are the salaries and wages for our civil servants? How can our people afford things that are so expensive? Clearly, there are issues that have nothing to do with the Patriotic Front. Does load shedding have anything to do with the Patriotic Front? Does the current hunger that faces up to 6.8 million of our people, is that a PF issue? All the issues that are inflation, runaway within a period of 1 year, it's gone to 15%. Bank of Zambia keeps on changing its MPR rate. Your loans that you have, especially for our civil servants and small businesses, they are no longer affordable because the interest is going up. Look at the volatile exchange rate. Again, are you going to say that's a PF issue? It is a failure of President Hakainde Hichilema. It's a failure of his government. They have failed lamentably, and they wish to look for scapegoats. And one of the scapegoats is the Patriotic Front.
You're saying
so the letter is in order. Honorable Milupi, Honorable Harry Kamboni of Kalomo, and Honorable Batuke Menda, Secretary General, must apologize. If they are not decent enough to apologize with their careless and dangerous remarks, their president, if he wishes to have cordial relations with the people of Zambia, with stakeholders such as the church, he must apologize for those careless remarks and for those infractions against the church. Remember, President Edgar Lungu, former President Edgar Lungu, was in Kabwe, and he went to pay a courtesy call to Bishop Clement Mlenga of Kabwe Diocese. Before, as soon as he was settled, the police stormed the office. The office of the bishop What is the police doing there? This is a premises of the church. It's out of bounds. But they stormed that church. They stormed the office of the bishop. My dear brother Harry Kalaba was in Impika, and they invited him for a radio program. Unfortunately or fortunately, the radio station is based at the Diocese of Impika's offices. The cadre stormed that place. You saw they were even sharpening their pangas, threatening that they will cut Honorable Harry Kalaba. There has been no apology from Batuke Imenda or the president. And these infractions keep on going. Recently, on 28th October, we were having the 10th memorial service for President Michael Sata. You saw how the police, heavily armed with anti-riot gear, stormed the Cathedral of the Child Jesus, closed it out from all entrances, one at the back and one at the front, and deployed a big number of police officers. And you saw that Archbishop Alik Banda was stranded outside for a period of over 2 hours. There has been no apology. There has been no one that has been punished for those criminal misconduct.
Right. Now, you say that the UPND, in your own words, has performed badly and they want to use your party as a scapegoat. And I'm hoping that when I observe whatever is happening and what you're saying, you are banking on their EU performance to want to bounce back. And you're also banking perhaps on the eligibility case of the former president that is coming up on the 10th of December. I want us to speak to that, because you want to bounce back using the popularity of the former head of state, banking on your track record of infrastructure development and all of that. But you have a big header in the name of the eligibility case, whose ruling is billed for the 10th of next month. Your party could be facing major recognition challenges now that you have adopted the new Congress Party. Let's just say that's the new PF. New Congress Party is a new PF. As I said earlier, New Congress Party has never participated in a general election, presidential at that matter, because Mr. Peter Chanda has always backed the PF. And in an event that the court prevent ECL from being on the ballot, you have a new outfit and you have a new face. Don't you think that is going to really reduce your chances of impressing the electorate, because they'll have to play recognition tactics for them to know where to mark X?
Yeah, first of all, the failures of President Hakainde Hichilema are no longer in contention or in debate. I see my dear brother Cornelius Mwetwa yesterday attempted to catalogue the so-called successes. Now, these are phantom successes. This country, all the parameters are showing. If you look at the corruption, it has risen. Look at the large-scale acts of corruption. What they're doing to the mines and other natural assets, they're just giving them away to foreigners, some in very unclear circumstances. I was listening to the Minister of Mines, who claimed that there was no transaction, no proper transaction between ZCCMIH and IRIH, and that we have not sold our shares. It doesn't even make sense. They've sold the shares, they've given away the mines. There's publicly listed information from the Lusaka Stock Exchange that up to 51% has gone to this Dubai-based company. This government is failing on all fronts. They have failed to tackle the economy. Look at the economic projections. In 2021, Dr. Stumbeko Msokotwane had an ambition that he would grow the economy by 4.7%. He revised it to somewhere under 2.5%, and that has been the message every year. He predicts, no, the economic growth will go up to 5.7%, but when the figures come, they are 2.7%. This year, he said the economy will grow to 4.7%. And now IMF just issued the statement that after they are studying and after the critical issues affecting our country, debt, rising inflation, issues of load shedding, issues of the drought, they said, look, this economy won't grow beyond 1.2%. The statistics are showing that this economy is failing and is failing on all sides. They've abused human rights, they've restricted democratic space to all of us. They are engaged in high-level acts of corruption. Our people are suffering.
Fair enough, but you haven't answered my question.
I'm coming to your question.
You haven't answered my question.
We need to first demonstrate the state of the nation. Who would then vote for the UPND? Who would, under these circumstances, vote for the UPND? I don't see anyone, because they don't provide hope. They have failed to provide solutions. They have failed to honor their own campaign promises. And they are so arrogant that they have to preach these phantom successes. They've refused to apologize for the mistakes they have made, and they have refused to apologize for the campaign promises that remain broken. On the issues of the patriotic front, I think, very, very strongly that the opposition will produce a president in 2026. It may be Edgar Lungu, it may be another. I think that is why for us as a patriotic front, we are engaged in ensuring that we help build the coalition of the opposition, that the UPND should not be given room to, like what happened in the recent by-elections, where the opposition, their combined number is far bigger than the winner of these elections. Like in Dilika ward, for example, if you total up the votes for the independent, who was literally PF, Socialist Party, Citizen First, the numbers are bigger than the UPND person who was declared winner. That we may face in 2026 if we don't put our act together. For the case that is coming up on 10th December, look, unless someone wants to destroy the judiciary, this is the same court that has ruled 4 times that Edgar Lungu is eligible. In the Dan Pule case, Sishua, Legal Resource Foundation, Bumpy Kapala, Bumpy from Katuba, all these brought these cases to ask the question if Edgar Lungu was eligible to participate in the 2021 elections. And the court affirmed in all 4 instances that he was eligible. They'll be destroying the judiciary if they ruled otherwise, because it's a matter they've settled not once, not twice, but 4 times. So for us, they should leave the issues of Edgar Lungu to the people of Zambia. If the people of Zambia do not want Edgar Lungu, it should be their choice. If the people of Zambia want Edgar Lungu, it should be their choice. It shouldn't be President Hakainde Hichilema who has sent those petitioners, because all those petitioners are UPND stooges who are trying to move the Constitutional Court to overturn the eligibility of Edgar Lungu. The courts, as a Zambia Conference of Catholic Bishops have warned, the courts should not participate in the politics. The courts should not render themselves as tools to deliver the political machinations of President Hakainde Hichilema. The courts must be an independent arbiter, must be a place for justice, must be a place for the truth. It should not be a place to abuse the judicial system in our country.
The inability to have a recognizable outfit.
That doesn't matter. I can give you the examples of Senegal, where there was an oppressive incumbent who proscribed the opposition, locked up the opposition, and one of the strong candidates, due to international pressure, he released the candidate 10 days before elections. And the opposition candidate just said, look, they've barred me, they've given me a fake conviction, but you vote for this young man. Within 10 days, that young man emerged as president. The elections in Botswana are also a good case. Who knew Advocate Boko before last week? Who knew him No one knew him. People knew Ian Kamba. Ian Kamba came and said, look, I formed this political party, but the opposition have been rallying you people against President Masisi. I think we have a candidate in Advocate Boko, and Advocate Boko became president. Look at Jacob Zuma and in his influence in the last election. They harassed him, took him to court. They wanted to send him to prison. He was actually in prison. He was pardoned. They began another process to take him to prison. He felt an alien in his own political party. And within weeks, he formed a party that has become the third largest political party in South Africa. So dynamics change. Yes, you might count that, look, the PF may not be on the ballot because State House has hijacked the party. But for us, we think that the biggest opposition President Hakainde Hichilema has is the people of Zambia.
Let's talk about yourself. The UPND are calling you all manner of names. They are calling you a propagandist, and that the entire communication machinery of the government is playing behind your schedule, and you are shaping the narrative. Literally, they are dancing to your tune. But your recent meeting caught on camera with the Permanent Secretary of Information, Thabo Kawana, has raised some eyebrows. That were you exchanging notes on how to be a good propagandist, since you were also PS at one time?
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you very much. No, sometimes I need to remind our people that our spokesperson for our second president, Dr. Frederick Chiluba, who himself alone was an institution. It's like he was like an institute. I was his spokesperson for 10 years. If there's any period I was trained, I think it was under his hand. He guided me very well. I was a media person, he was a politician, but you saw that I was his face for a period of 10 years. I think that's where I cut my teeth. That is where I did my training as a media person. And what I learned is that just tell your side of the story. Don't follow populist way. The story of Frederick Chiluba was not a popular story. You know, they had accused him of all sorts of things, but he insisted, Emmanuel, have my story and help me tell my story. They're saying I'm corrupt. I'm not corrupt. Here are the facts. So even in the face of anger, in the face of a hostile audience that has been presented that your former president is a thief, I had to tell the truth. So I think that's where I learned that you don't have to necessarily cow to what people are calling you and what people want you to say. You may say most of the things that are not popular, but if you are founded that you are pushing the truth, then be it. Then people again forget that I was a diplomat for almost 8 years as Zambia's High Commissioner to South Africa and Zambia's ambassador to Ethiopia. I was also permanent representative to the African Union. I was also permanent representative to the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. In South Africa, all the diplomats elected me as their spokesperson or chair. Remember when we had the xenophobic crisis, and I became the face to discuss, you know, for African countries what their citizens were going through in South Africa. And you would find that I would issue several statements and I would speak to several media. In Ethiopia, I was privileged that in many cases I was vice or chair of large committees at the African Union. So when I come to this terrain, I'm not a greenhorn. And the issues that we propagate are not propaganda at all. From my training, I think, because social media doesn't forget. Social media, like, you know what haunts President Hakainde Hichilema, is what he used to say. I'll give you millimil for 50 kwacha. Zambians will just replay that video. He says, I'll give you fertilizer for 200 kwacha. Zambians just play that video. He says, I'll give you fuel for 12 kwacha. Zambians just replay that video. So they will call me names, but I don't answer to their names because I personally know, Pastor Kennedy, who I am. I know who I am. And I know that for me, my role is just to speak the truth. Sometimes the truth is uncomfortable. Sometimes people want it unspoken, especially the powers that be. They don't want us to expose the corruption, the tribalism, the way they are destroying the economy, the way they are giving assets to foreign entities. They don't want us to speak about that. They want us to speak about CDF and free education. No, that is their story. They should tell their story. We will tell our story. Coming to my young brother, Tabo Kawana. Young man I know for a long time. He was in our media committee under PF. He was based on the Copper Belt, and he would speak to the media several times when he was in Lusaka and when he was in the Copper Belt. So it's not, I don't know him now. I've known him when he worked under us, then under the Patriotic Front. When I bumped into him at Intercontinental, and he says he has this wonderful idea where he wants former permanent secretaries to meet him. If possible, he wants to create like like some form of a committee of former permanent secretary who he can rely on in case he wants to seek advice in his work, professional work. In case he wants to seek counsel, he wants those former permanent secretaries. Today he met Amos Malupenga and my dear brother Chanda Kasolo. He's probably going to meet Stephen Mwansa and Bet Mushala and others. Now, that matter of me bumping into Kawana at Intercontinental has raised concern. Kawana speaks for President Hakainde Hichilema and his government. I speak for my party and the opposition. So when we met, probably people raised concern. What are the two discussing? But Kawana had that wonderful initiative where he wants us to, to meet him as former permanent secretary. I actually reminded him that I've seen this tradition at the central bank. Once a year, the governor would call his former governors that are alive. Once a year, the Minister of Finance will call former ministers of finance for a cocktail, for tea, or for a meal, or for lunch, or for dinner. And there is a similar issue at Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where again the Minister of Foreign Affairs will call his former colleagues. So I encouraged him that it was a good idea. But whether I'll take it up, whether I'll go to his office, I think that's another matter. But
right.
I had bumped into him at Intercontinental Hotel.
He speaks for the government and for President Hakainde Hichilema. The government has hired a Kenyan communications firm, from what we understand, to try and train the ministers in a way they should communicate their story. You said you need to tell your story. And so they've brought in a Kenyan outfit to train them, to train ministers, permanent secretaries, and perhaps all government communication functionaries. I saw my friend, Lois there. I saw the DG for ZNBC, and a lot more communication functionaries present in that training. What is your reading into that? Don't we have trainers locally, or is it that maybe Kenya is a little bit more elevated and exposed? They'll bring value to the table. What are the permutations that has informed the decision by State House, government, cabinet office to hire a communications outfit out of Nairobi, Kenya?
The president's reliance on foreign entities is worrying, extremely worrying. From day one, he brought Brentes Foundation. This is a neoliberal entity created by the Oppenheimers, the founders of Anglo-American. They promote mining interest in Africa. Their role is they've made their wealth from the mining sector. They want friendly mining policies. From day one, Greg Mills has been at State House, who's the executive director of Brentes Foundation. We've called him out. We've called out the president that you can't have these foreign advisors in this day and age. You saw the Tony Blair Institute sign an agreement. We don't know how much it is. We don't know who pays with the Minister of Finance. And again, Tony Blair is also at State House and is also at Ministry of Finance. They've even created the Presidential Delivery Unit, something he invented when he was a prime minister. There was a prime minister delivery unit. We have condemned the presence of these foreigners. First of all, they are curating our mining policy, our economic policies, our foreign policy. We know that, for example, the presence AFRICOM, the American combatant unit in Zambia, that office to be opened. Again, it came through these foreign entities that are at State House. State House is a sacred place. That's where the seat of power for a country is. That's where the levers of power reside. At State House, you can change this country. You have these foreign entities there. Just the other day, I was very alarmed to see that, again, Greg Mills has gone to our military infrastructure, our school for the military in Kamwala, to go and launch a book with the president. Remember, this is a man, as soon as President Hakainde Hichilema became president, he invited him to launch his book in Johannesburg. And the president flew to Johannesburg at taxpayers' money to go and launch a book for Greg Mills. He has done the same under military infrastructure, a book called The Art of War and Peace. I think that we should exclude institutions such as the military from this kind of politics. I felt that the president had compromised national security by having Greg Mills in the barracks at the military school to launch that book. I think that that should have been kept away. The president must keep his friends away from such key institutions of our country. Coming back to your question on training for communication crisis, clearly this government is not only suffering an economic crisis, it's also suffering a media crisis. They have layers of media. I think there's poor coordination, there's disconnection, and their story, I think, lies on just two key issues. Number one, a failing economy that both President Hakainde Hichilema and Msokotwane have failed to attend to. The other issue is President Hakainde Hichilema's own campaign promises. And so because they ran away from these two key issues, they want to pretend the economy is better than it was under the PF. They want to forget that they promised Zambians these matters, that there are these key issues that they pledged to the people of Zambia in form of campaign pledges and campaign promises. This is where their crisis is. For their media, the president should just hire competent people. He doesn't have competent people. You don't need training from Kenya. You can pay Zambians for that job.
Do you think that the president is probably worried that his accomplishments are not being told as well as he wants them to be told? And looking at the time remaining for the elections, he wants to expedite the communication process.
There is nothing. There's no better story than you just delivering. He should deliver on public promises. He should deliver on his campaign promises. He will have done 80% of his work. The communication crisis arises because the economy is failing and the president has failed to deliver on his campaign promises. There's no sweet story you can tell on a failing exchange rate. You can't do propaganda with a volatile exchange rate market like ours. You can't do propaganda with inflation rate that's running away, that has jumped from a single digit of 9.5%. Now it's at 15% under a period of 1 year. There's nothing you can do there. Our people are hungry. You can't do propaganda. So for me, the biggest priority, other than his failing communication, is that he needs to attend to the economy. There was no need for those foreign trainers.
I mean,
Kenneth, you are a good PR guy, media specialist. Chris Mfula, Maureen Nkandu. We have various people that can do that kind of training, and that it will be local, it will be better, it will reflect what the crisis is. You have Times, Daily Mail, Zanis, ZNBC steeped in legacy issues. They fail to come out of it. The president keeps on saying social media. But do you hire, my dear brother, Chiti Mwewa? Do you, Simon, he calls himself Simon Mwewa Len, but do you hire Chiti to resolve your social media crisis? Of course not. You have to hire a competent person. Why isn't there a spokesperson at State House? Ask anyone. In the past, people knew who Amos Chanda is. They knew who Dickson Jerry is. They'll be hard-pressed to know who Clayson Amasaka is, because it's just totally absent. You don't know who the Minister of Information. The Minister of Information is known, but the PS overshadows the Minister of Information. So there's disconnect, there's a failure to do the job. There are media units in every ministry. Why are they dead? Each entities like ZRA have very thriving media units. Why are they dead? So for me, I don't think that that's a matter that should be resolved by foreigners. Kennedy, you can do that job. I can do that job. And many senior people, Sipo Kapumpa and others, could have given that training.
Thank you for the confidence. As a matter of riding on that, I did the communications strategy for current parliament.
Yeah.
The communication plan that they're using, sponsored by the UNDP.
Yeah.
I drafted that.
Yeah. So we have competent people like
thank
yourself.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. But let's come back to, there's this strongly held notion that you in opposition are always downplaying what the government is achieving. The last 2 weeks, the president has launched 2 mines. Surely that deserves commendation.
No. It raises alarm for us. You sell Mopani, which has an investment of $4.5 billion in the last 4 years. It has new shafts in Mufulira, in Kitwe. It has a new smelter. You give it away, and the investor has not given a single way to the treasury. Yet 51% of your shares have gone. The UPND want us to celebrate that Mopani has reopened. We are totally alarmed. That's a brand new mine, one of the biggest mines in Africa. And we should get value for it. KCM, you give it to Vedanta, a rogue investor. I've repeated that. Who never paid interest or taxes in a period of 20 years. Ran down that mine, engaged in mining practices that degraded the assets. Vedanta has been given back the mine. We should be clapping. Why can't we get a responsible investor? You go to Kasenseli Gold. It's supposed to be owned by ZCCMIH and the local community. You are obscure on the details. That is the largest gold find this country has ever had. So you want ZCMIH with unknown people to open the mines? We are asking questions. Who are the new parties you've brought to Kasenseli Gold? Who are they? You want us to celebrate the investment at Kansanshi of $1.3 billion. But we are asking, First Quantum externalized $2.5 billion from that mine. There was litigation process in London and in Lusaka to recover $2.5 billion externalized by First Quantum. But you want us to celebrate that First Quantum Kansanshi na besula. Na $2.5 billion yesu, audited, documented, litigated upon. You go to Kalengo mines, we hear there are still legal issues you have not resolved. So no, we will not clap. We will not clap for things that are destroying our country. If you are providing free education, we are saying provide the aspect of quality too. You cannot have one teacher teaching students that are 120. When does she mark? And this is just one subject. If our kids take 6 to 9 subjects, how does a teacher cope with the work? So we want you to provide not just free education, we want you to provide quality education. If you turn CDF into a looting frenzy, why should we be clapping that CDF is working when it's a looting machinery by your cooperatives that you formed? No, we have a duty as members of the opposition to ask these rather difficult questions, these uncomfortable questions, so that our people get value for the money, they are the taxpayers, and they get value for the goods that are for the development that is being done. That our treasury should not be looted. Yes, they want us to clap. It's not our duty to clap. They can clap for themselves. Our duty is to provide checks and balances.
Given the gravity of the regression and the slump in the economy and the spike in the inflation and all of these things as you're painting them.
They are the truth. I'm not painting them.
Well, yes.
You can rely on Bank of Zambia and Ministry of Finance statistics.
Yes. So my question then is, Zambians are looking forward to a new government come 2026. How much of work is likely to be faced by the new administration, whether the UPND continues, whether a new set of leaders come into power? What do you foresee as the gravity of the weight of jobs that need to be done to bring the economy back to where it should be?
Pastor Kennedy, before we even cross over to 2026 and the new government, for me, I sound a strong warning to the opposition. Currently, there are attempts to steal that election by the UPND. Look at what they're doing at Parliament. Why do they want to engineer numbers, expel 9 MPs, engineer by-elections in a depressed economy? They want by-elections in Kawambwa, in Petauke, in Pambashe. They want by-elections. Why are they doing that? Why do they have sinister motives? Look what they are doing at the Electoral Commission of Zambia. You have a chairperson who is just issuing regulations, like the regulations I talked about, where she said, no, all certificates that used to be signed by our local officers, our local ward elections or constituents or provincial officers are the ones that would sign those forms. She says the president and the Secretary General of the political party must sign. Now, actually, candidates are required even to produce, tax clearance certificates. She's putting up all sorts of regulations. Zambians must wake up. There are reports of this voter registration that is not clear, that's not transparent, that's not properly advertised in areas where it is being done, where UPND are shipping their members there, and the opposition is sleeping. We ought to be very alert that it is not enough that Zambians are suffering, therefore they will vote for the opposition. It's not enough that President Hakainde Hichilema has failed, therefore the opposition will vote, the people of Zambia will vote for us. We have to work for that vote. How to ensure that it is taken as a ballot to the polling center, to a polling station, how it is counted, you secure it when it is counted, how it is publicized and spoken to. Why is President Hakainde Hichilema blind to the concerns we've raised that he has brought Mwangala Zalumis, a well-known UPND cadre, our dear brother McDonald Chpenzi, a well-known UPND cadre. These are entities that are sacred, that were led by a Supreme Court judge. If you look at the Independent Electoral Commission of Zambia from 1991, they've been led by either High Court or Supreme Court judges. Why do we have people of questionable political standing be the commission at the ECZ? The use of the police to stop political processes, demonstrations, picketing, protests, political rallies, meetings, where is that pointing to? Is to restrict the space of the opposition. The opposition should not think it will be easy. That is why the call for unity must be taken very seriously. If we are playing with personal egos who can rescue the people of Zambia, we will squander that great chance that is before us.
Talking about unity in the opposition, which is very critical, we noticed that in Kawambwa during the nomination, you put up a very united front. We saw that an announcement was made, Citizens First, we are not going to feature in this particular election, but they will rally behind the Tonse Alliance. A candidate that meant Uka equally withdrew from participating and rallying behind a Citizens First candidate. Are we seeing your alliance and Uka going back to bed because there was a disintegration? Kawambwa seems to be a new wake-up call for you to go back and work together.
I think it should be these by-elections, Dilika and the others that just recently took place, that is working all of us. I would like to commend President Harry Kalawa for his magnanimity and for his maturity and for his realistic approach to these issues. I was personally disappointed to see that, for example, the United Kwacha Alliance said they will not allow duality of membership. We want to Akwalesa. It doesn't matter where you are. In fact, for the PF, we said we'll engage in political alliances and electoral pacts. So there will be places where the alliances may not be present, but there's a political party that you can work with. You can engage in electoral pacts. The opposition must recognize it's not about shadow boxing. Taking power from an incumbent is a very serious matter, and it should be taken as seriously as it is required. So unity for the opposition is non-negotiable. Let's learn from places like Kenya, where they take the issues of elections very seriously. They will have usually just two major alliances. The ruling party will garner political parties on its side. The opposition will garner political sides. They elect two major candidates, and you go to an election that way. As soon as you split the votes, because of egos, personal ambitions, without relegating or making your personal ambition as a subsidiary, we will lose the 2026 elections.
Did you reach out to the Socialist Party? They've been very consistent in participating in elections. Your party is only coming to the party now, to the table now. Socialist Party has been very consistent, and they are a key player in the Kawambwa election. They've fielded a candidate. You would have loved perhaps also to be in a certain arrangement with them like the rest of you in opposition. Did you reach out to them?
You saw in the by-election in Kawambwa, the council chairperson election, that they literally picked our candidate. That's our candidate. Mpasa, Ivo Mpasa, has been our member. And we were mute about it.
He's no longer your member.
Of course. He's no longer our member, but I'm saying he was our member. Even when he was using pictures of Nixon Chilangwa and Honorable Ronald Chitotela, you saw that we kept quiet about it. We didn't scandalize the candidate, and we encouraged, and he did very, very well. It's imperative. First of all, individual parties must not die. So, for example, I like what the Patriot Front is doing. It's reorganizing itself. It's setting up branches. It has expanded branches, from 24 to 72. That work is ongoing, and the party is growing across the country. I like the role that the Socialist Party is doing. I like what Citizen First is doing. Individual political parties must grow. They bring strength to the table when one day you call for that unity. Individual political parties must not die, or they must not hide under the umbrella of political alliances and have no membership, have no drive whatsoever. It's imperative that you bring strength and numbers to the table of alliances.
My last question, do you stand a chance as opposition to unseat the UPND come 2026?
It's ours to lose. This is our elections in 2026. We must get our act together. President Hakainde Hichilema is such a monumental failure that Zambians wouldn't risk to give him another 5 years. It will be political suicide for all of us and our country. He has messed up international relations. He can't face his colleagues in SADC. Look, he tilted far to the west to the US and UK. Now he's trying to go far left to China, and then the economy is floundering on its knees. He has failed to attend to the various crises this country is facing. It's not suitable to take us beyond 2026. I think he was a transit president, more transient for the period of 2021-2026. It's imperative that we, the opposition, provide the candidate, whether to be Edgar Lungu, whether to be any other, as an alternative to President Hakainde Hichilema, so that we can rescue this country and drive it towards prosperity.
Ambassador Emmanuel MWAMBA, PF Publicity Chairperson and Information and Publicity Chairperson, making appearance on State of the Nation. Thank you very much for
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've been looking at UPND governance and development agenda in the eyes of the Patriotic Front. On behalf of my producer, Rachel Chipwende, and indeed my director on duty tonight, William Chongo, my name is Kenneth Mambwe. The Lord keep you and bless you. Until next time, shalom, shalom.